بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك سيدي ومولاي يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك سيدي ومولاي يا أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك سيدتي ومولاتي يا زهراء يا أم الحسن والحسين، سيدي شباب أهل الجنة السادة وموالي جميعا. سلام الله تعالى عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Dear brothers and sisters, tonight we go to Lady Zahra alayha salam to mourn her on the 40th of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, to talk to her, to show her our commitment to Imam Hussein, to Lady Zainab, to Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhim salam, as they were taken prisoners of war from the city of Karbala, from the land of Karbala to Kufa, from the Kufa around in the deserts, through the villages and the cities, to Damascus, from Damascus back to Medina on the way. In a day like today they passed by Karbala again. يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. We wish we were with you, oh my masters, so we would gain that victory with you. يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما. صلوات. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The Almighty Allah says in the Holy Quran, as we have recited in the past few nights, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، يريدون ليطفئوا نور الله بأفواههم والله متم نوره ولو كره الكافرون. والله متم نوره ولو كره الكافرون. هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله. هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات. When we go to the commentary to understand what this verse is identifying and to relate to it, and obviously when you read the Holy Quran, dear brothers and sisters, as you all know, the Quran comes to give us some pointers to understand what these pointers are identifying. The pointers have a great flexibility that it could apply to, but there is something specifically applicable to this verse, and others may be applicable to it too. Through the understanding of the verse in light of the tafsir, commentary of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, this flexibility of understanding is given to us, and we become more able to apply the verse to ourselves. When we go back to explaining this verse, Al-Shaykh Al-Saduq rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh, who is one of our great scholars at the beginning of the occultation, in his book called Kamaluddin wa Itmamun Ni'mah, he said, as he narrates on Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam, that this verse, they want to extinguish the light of Allah through their mouths, but Allah will perfect His light. Yutimma nurih. That light is meant by it the 12th holy Imam salamullahi ta'ala alayh. And the perfection of this religion is with the appearance of the 12th Imam salamullahi ta'ala alayh. In fact, when we read this verse, we realize that Allah Azza wa Jal is saying, this nur of Allah, Nurullah. And tomorrow, after tomorrow, I'll specifically talk about the light of Allah, what is meant, in more detail. But tonight, knowing the light of Allah Azza wa Jal is the 12th holy Imam salamullahi ta'ala alayh, the Imam of the time, there are questions that we ought to ask ourselves in order to understand the effect of that light in our lives today and now. How is it that Allah Azza wa Jal will perfect that light? Because light, once it is emitted, it's perfect. When the light is switched on in this room, it reaches every aspect of the room. Where does the problem lie? Not in the light emitting this ray. It is in us receiving it. I might block myself from receiving the light that is emitted from these bulbs. The problem is not the light emitting, the problem is me receiving. The perfection of the light that Allah Azza wa Jal is talking about in this verse, that there shall be time where every single person will become aware of the light of the Imam salamullahi ta'ala alayh. And therefore at that time Allah says لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ, that this light, this religion, this haqq, this truth will have the authority and overrule every other thought and every other religion, regardless who tries to reject it. Keep in mind, Allah Azza wa Jal in a different verse, He says, لا إكراه في الدين. There is no compulsion in religion. So the time of the appearance of the Imam alayhi salam, although it will have some kind of battles and wars, but what is more relevant is an educational and intellectual movement where these hearts, not through compulsion, but through thinking, through intellectual discourse, through dialogue, you will see people turning into this religion of haqq because of the Imam of haqq. This is important to realize, so we understand as followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam the importance of this dialogue in our lives today. Like for example, I'm going to give you some examples, especially according to the school thought of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And I want you to pay very close attention to these examples I'm going to give, because unfortunately you can understand personally in your lives today how we as claimers that we claim we follow Ahlul Bayt, how close we are to this thought or how far we are from this thought. When you look at our history, at the end of the day, today we talk about the event of Karbala. How much of the event of Karbala and the details of the event of Karbala is accurate? You know, this can be a very sensitive issue to some. From my humble experience, to some you can tell them the Quran has mistakes, but don't tell them Karbala events have mistakes. Which is a disaster, by the way. That was a lot of sarcasm, by the way, if you didn't get it. Just in case, you know. Let me make it very clear. The Holy Quran that we have today is the only absolutely authentic book that we have. Meaning there is no falsehood in anything in it. Now, and by the way, there's a beautiful history that we ought to study in the chain of narrations of how this Quran that we have today was preserved. And if you go to any Quran that is printed today, do we have a copy of the green Quran that was printed in Saudi Arabia in the back? If you can give me the copy, please. I want to show you something. I think I've showed in the Q&A one time before I went through it. I want to just go over it very quickly. I want to show you the importance of what our scholars have done over the years. Because I hear many things nowadays, and it's really pathetic. It is sad state of affairs that we, the Shia, the followers of the school thought of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, try to belittle the work our scholars have done. We question the authenticity, the credibility of our scholars and what have they done. Not realizing that our scholars from the time of the Imams and the Prophet ﷺ until today had two major roles they have been playing. Today our scholars, until today, two major roles every single scholar is working on. Preserving two things: the lives of Shia and the knowledge of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. It is as simple as that. To preserve the knowledge and to preserve the life. And that is why you will see our scholars having and playing different roles in different communities based on how the community is functioning, where is it functioning, how is it functioning. Now, we will see that, I guess you guys don't have a copy of the Quran, that in Saudi Arabia today, it printed the green copy Quran, or the blue now, they're printing it in blue color. It is printed in the millions of copies. Look at the end of it. They say this Quran was scribed according to the narration of Hafs and Asim that it was narrated based on the narrative, the pronunciation, and the dialogue of these scholars. And they mention 3 or 4 scholars, 4 narrators, and then they say An Uthman wa Ali wa Hudayfa, I think, or I forgot, Zayd, An Zayd. So they have 3 scholars narrating the copy of the Quran that we have today, and then they go straight after to what? They say, An Uthman wa Ali wa Zayd. And I think they might mention a 4th one. So here are 4 scholars, and then they equate the other 4 equally. In reality, when you look at these 4 scholars, you'll find these scholars are followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, who were taught by Ali ibn Abi Talib salamullahi ta'ala alayh. Today the Quran was safeguarded and was protected because of our scholars. This, by the way, is an important discussion I've given before, about 11 lectures in how the Quran was preserved in the way it was scribed. The scholars, the chains, the form of language. It's a very interesting topic to delve into. But also, this text is the absolute text that we have. Besides the text, we have narratives, hadith. The major 4 books of hadith, this is digressing from the topic, but I want to just mention, how many of you know the major 4 books of hadith that us, the Shia, depend on, and we take as a source of our knowledge in Islamic law, in theology, in belief? Who knows the name of the 4 books? Go ahead. من لا يحضره الفقيه، الكافي، الاستبصار، what's that? تهذيب الأحكام. الكافي، من لا يحضره الفقيه، الاستبصار والتهذيب. One was by Al-Kulayni, the other by Sheikh Al-Saduq, and 2 were by whom? Tusi. Someone should give what do you call it? A prize for the sister of Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. I've gone through many different communities, and I asked a simple question. You'll be amazed. A lot of communities just sit down. It's like, what 4 books are you talking about? Now, let me add some information here. Might as well, this might be useful. Later on, in the history of our scholars, another scholar by the name of Al-Hurr Al-Amili wrote a book called Wasa'il al-Shia. Wasa'il al-Shia is considered by our jurists one of the major books of hadith. Why? It did not come up with something different than the 4 books. But what did it do? It reorganized the 4 books based on topics that ranged from fiqh and other issues. So, for example, in one hadith, it might talk about fasting, about prayers, and about Hajj. What did Al-Hurr Al-Amili do? He took that hadith and he separated it in 3 places. In the topic of Hajj, the topic of fasting, the topic of prayers. Now, these books that were mentioned, the 4 books, were gathered when? Right at the grand occultation. Between the small occultation and grand occultation, these books were put together. Before, each imam had companions who followed him and took knowledge from him. They wrote books of the knowledge they received from the companions. These books were gathered and were put together. They're called the 400 Principles. They are about 400 major books that were put together. Now, the three scholars in their 4 books gathered what they found authentic and they put it in their books. Now, what does it mean authentic? Each hadith, each narrative has 2 parts to it. The chain of narration and the content or the text itself. The chain, I'll give you an example. Today our scholars have their chain. They say, I narrate based on the permission given to me by my teacher, who has the permission given to him by his teacher, and the chain goes all the way to the Imam Salamullahi Ta'ala alayh. I saw some of the authorizations my grandfather has. It's very interesting. It goes like about 2 pages all the way to come to the Imam Salamullahi Ta'ala alayh. And they highly regard this authorization. Now, the chain of narrators, those who narrate the hadith, each one has a value. Some is trustworthy, some is questionable, some are not. Who tells us what they are and they're not? There are scholars along the time. They gathered this kind of information in what is called the books of indexing, Al-Faharist. Each book would say, these scholars, and he is Shia Ithnay Ashari, he is trustworthy, he is just, he is honest. So the scholars today, they look into all these books, they look at every chain of hadith, they look at every narrator, then they look at the context, and they tell you this hadith is it authentic or is not authentic. It is not a walk in the park. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of studying. Recently, one of the major books in chain of narrators and narrators is written by whom? Ayatollah al-Uzma al-Sayyid al-Khou'i, may Allah bless his soul. What he did an amazing, miraculous work. He gathered all the narrators. He cross-referenced them all to each other against the books of indexing, against the 4 books of hadith. And he created an encyclopedia called the Encyclopedia of Narratives and Narrators. Kitab Mu'jam Rijal al-Hadith. Our scholars work daily to preserve this knowledge. This is their role. So now, obviously, these are the books, and we have books of history. Books of history, for example, Al-Mas'udi wrote a book called Muruj al-Dhahab. Al-Yaqubi called Kitab al-Yaqubi. Ibn Kathir or Al-Dhahabi has a book, also several books, A'lam al-Dhahabi. These are scholars of different schools. Al-Tabari. What do we do with this? We look at history and we investigate these books. And we investigate different books of our hadith, our history, and our other schools of hadith and history. Why? Because sometimes our imams use taqiyya in order to safeguard the Shia. That's why they were very careful to reveal some of the information and the data. So we need to be very careful at cross-referencing. That is why, dear brothers and sisters, I want to tell you something very important, that you listen attentively.
Please move forward. There's hardly any space in the back.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. I think Father Hashim made it a lot easier here. Just give me the bottle, thank you. So, I want you to be very careful. We have the tendency, some of us have the tendency, to reject or accept blindly. Especially, it becomes either my way or the highway. It's either what I know and everything else is wrong, and it becomes problematic. Dear brothers and sisters, authenticating an event, look at all of us here, most of us, if I know the community well, what we call students or the masses here. How many of you spend at the least, 10 to 15 years in the Hawza Islamic Seminary? Anyone did that here? Yeah, I thought so. Therefore, none of you has the authority or the capacity to say, this is right and this is wrong. Period. End of topic. I don't care what else you've done. If you have not studied under a scholar that has this knowledge to authorize you to make a decision as such, do me a favor. Don't get yourself into something you cannot handle. This is not a walk in the park. This is not a piece of cake that, oh, I don't think it's right. No. We leave this to the experts. The experts are the ones that studies these chains, know the authenticity and credibility of all the narrators, and based on their decision they say, this hadith or that hadith, this piece of event or that piece of event, this history or that history, not you or I. What we do, we know there are scholars out there. Based on our Hawza, our Islamic seminary, there are well-known historians, well-known narrators, well-known jurists, the mainstream. Those are the ones that we take their authority and follow what they say. For example, I'll give you an example. The issue of the Arba'in itself. Some scholars, some say the caravan actually went from Damascus straight to Medina. It never passed through Karbala. I know some of you now go, oh, hold on, there's no Arba'in here. The reality of the matter is, some scholars do claim that. Now, most of our scholars say no. The caravan on the way to Medina took the desert route through Karbala back to Medina. Some say the Arba'in, the 40th, happened when? Not the year Imam Hussein a.s. was martyred, but the following year when they were returning back. Some also say it happened the same year. Let me add more. The head of Imam Hussein salamullahi ta'ala alayh, there are some claims that it is buried in Egypt. Some claim it is buried in Damascus by the Masjid al-Amawi. Some claim that it was left in Medina. Some claim that no, it was brought back to Karbala to Imam Hussein's body. Most of our scholars authenticate that last claim, that the head of Imam Hussein was brought back to Karbala and was joined with the body of Imam Hussein salamullahi ta'ala alayh. Some claim also that the head stayed in Damascus until Umar ibn Abdul Aziz came. Yazid held it in Damascus because he was scared what would happen if they took the head out, that everyone would revolt against him. Bani Umayyah, they were scared of that. They say Umar ibn Abdul Aziz took it and returned it. We have other authenticated hadith that say no, Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam brought it back with him. What is the purpose of me telling you all this? All these events. Let me add one more. Who is buried in Sham, in Damascus? Who do you know, the very well-known person buried in Damascus? Who? Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam. Do you know that there are claims that it is Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam is a name, a title for two of the daughters of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Zainab al-Sughra and Zainab al-Kubra. Zainab al-Sughra is whom? Known as Kulthum, who was with Lady Zainab alayhi salam. Some claim Lady Zainab, who we all know of, is actually buried in Egypt. And it's Lady Zainab al-Sughra, Kulthum, is buried in Damascus. Some say no, they're different, the opposite. Now, what does this all tell me? What's the importance of this? The importance of it is you and I, when a scholar tells us any of this, we cannot discredit him or blindly follow him. There is a criteria. What is the criteria? What are the resources and references he's using? If it's a scholarly reference, I can only say it's an option. None of this information will take you to heaven or take you to hell. What takes you to heaven and hell is what you believe of these individuals. And this topic, by the way, a lot of people get scared talking about it. But you know what's more scary? If we are ignorant of it and we make wrong decisions based on it. I wanted you to realize there are many different narrations. But as Shia Muslims, we have the mainstream narratives and events that we all stick to, and these are the ones that are usually narrated on the podiums and pulpits. Let me add to the issue of Karbala stories, for example. Sometimes I listen to some Urdu majalis and some Persian majalis. Don't worry about it right now. It's like, oh, he's getting into the hot zone now. And Persian majalis and Arabic majalis. The thing is, all these majalis are based on how many books? On few books. A few books written in Arabic that are the ones who are credible enough that every other story has to be rooted back to one of these books. There is nothing else. When I say this happened in Karbala, you should ask me, where do you get this from? It has to be narrated by someone who witnessed the event in Karbala. And we have about 4 major witnesses that actually wrote what they saw in Karbala, other than what we narrate from our Immaculates Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. At-Tabari, in his history, a book of history about 20 plus volumes, he narrates the entire event of Karbala based on one narration by one witness, eyewitness. So, do you see how things are? So when I look at some of the details, I question myself. Where did some of these details come in Arabic, in Persian, and Urdu? And I started tracing it back. In Arabic, what happened, the following. Lady Zainab alayhi salam went to see Imam Hussein alayhi salam as she was walking in the battlefield. The poet says, as he narrates, he goes, Lady Zainab went to see Imam Hussein, and what do you imagine Lady Zainab was thinking of? And he started saying a poem based on what could Lady Zainab be feeling as she was going to see Imam Hussein alayhi salam. That's not what happened in Karbala. This is a poet just describing what would Lady Zainab be feeling as she's going. It's something he made, the poet made on his own. As this narrative goes on and on and on over the years, what happens? They drop the whole issue of the poet said. And what do they leave? Lady Zainab said this. And this whole poetry becomes what? The event itself. It's translated into Persian. It even becomes what? More part of history. And then translated into Urdu, it becomes even more part of history. But in reality, all of this was only poetry by a poet describing what would Lady Zainab feel if she was going to Imam Hussein alayhi salam based on his thoughts only. You need to realize all these details, because some people have the audacity to say, man, there is so much exaggeration in the event of Karbala. No, 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 there is no exaggeration in the event of Karbala. Event of Karbala is preserved. We know exactly what happened. We know the details of what happened. Yes, there might have been problems in translating some of the events. It doesn't undermine the entire event. And it is very fine that when we talk about the event, we add and we talk about how would Lady Zainab feel? How would people feel? How would people be thinking of? But we need to make sure that we are very accurate in making this narration clear. Why? Because even today, and I know there is a procession on Sunday, right? You have a responsibility for this procession. You have a big responsibility. Let me make it clear, and I digress so much that I'm not going to even be able to cover the topic tonight. You, each and every one of you, has a big responsibility in the procession as you participate. What is the purpose of processions? Why do we do processions? Can someone tell me? To what? To make the public aware, right? When you want to make the public aware, how do you make the public aware? Would you, when you make the public aware, do what suits you to understand it, or what suits them to understand the event? Which one? What suits them, because your job is what? You're trying to deliver a message. Listen, no one can tell us unless there is a red line of halal and haram. You can talk about Imam Hussein, cry on Imam Hussein, express your love to Imam Hussein however you want. No one's going to tell you no. I like to do it this way, okay, do it. You like to do something else, do it. But we need to maximize on the way to do it, so we can actually be what? Delivering the message. Making people love Imam Hussein alayhi salam. I was in London, and someone told me, a participant in a procession, he goes, I was passing handouts, and a British guy stopped me. You know, a blonde, blue eyes, and he goes, so what is this that's happening? Who's this guy that you guys... Why is he so bad about Yazid? He goes, man, so he goes, I started explaining to him, this guy used to just have pets, go after women, drink, and just gamble. So the British guy's like, alright, so what's wrong with all of that so far? We're laughing at that, but the problem is, this guy looked at everything that was listed is what? He does on every day. So what do? Do we say Yazid was a good guy? God forbid. No, we don't do that. But we emphasize on things different. The issue is not Yazid anymore. We should change it. Who's the issue now? The justice, the compassion, the mercy of Hussein. The love, the care, the father Hussein was, the leader Hussein was, the brother Hussein was, the justice Hussein was, the fairness Hussein was. Who remembers this, the ads, who is Hussein, is it? .com, is it, or .org? .org? Let me tell you, I don't know who they are, but they did one of probably the best job with anyone could do so far. Hands down, it's probably the best job. I don't know who they are, but if you can go and support them, if you pay $1 just to support them on the website, believe me, you'll be doing some good things. They have blasted the ads everywhere. I know it was blasted in New York. I know it was blasted in London, in different places around the world. Beautiful. A way people can relate. Oh, what is it? Oh, you're handing it. Excellent. Who is Hussein? Great job. This is actually good work. Why? It's nothing we did, but we used it because it's effective. So this is how we collaborate together. Be creative. See, here's what I want you to do. It's important to maintain the culture that we bring from back home. It's important. But do we want our children to also live the love of Hussein? Then we ought to create their culture. And their culture is here, is America. How can we create the tradition and the culture of Imam Hussein in America today? How creative can we be? How can we develop, renew, and connect with the audience outside that we want to reach and deliver the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam to? This is your responsibility. Tomorrow when you walk in the procession, if people are just walking and looking at you like, that's your responsibility. It is your responsibility. If they walk away, it's like, it's you who pushed them away. So you stand before Hussein and you defend yourself. Because Hussein does not have to be in Urdu or in Persian or in Arabic. You know that. And I challenge you now if you tell me yes, he has to. But I challenge you further if you have the courage to stand before Imam Hussein when he asks you, why did you turn away this individual who did not know your language, who did not know your culture? Why did you turn him away from me? That is your responsibility. And yes, you have a problem with that, come and talk to me. We cannot take and push people away from Imam Hussein alayhi salam just because of our short-sightedness. Processions are important and are powerful. Let that power roar wherever you are so people can understand, not yell and scream. There's a difference between someone yelling and screaming, so what the heck is he doing? Versus someone calling out and people understanding the message. That is your responsibility. Are you going to take that responsibility seriously or no? Everything you do, you either attract people or reject them. You either bring them closer to Hussein or push them far away from Hussein. Every place has its style. What is the most important thing? At-tawalli. You know what tawalli is? To emphasize and root the love of Hussein and Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Once you love the truth, what happens? Automatically you reject all falsehood. You did tabarri. When do you do tabarri? You know the most important act and method of tabarri, what is it? Is to do the true wilayah, the true love. When you do the true love, you effectively rejected any falsehood. Now, how do you do it? It's in your hand. How do you attract the people for the love of Ahlul Bayt? Through tawalli and tabarri. How do you play the role of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, who managed at the time of Abu Bakr, Umar and Uthman? How do you walk in the footsteps of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, who had to live with a tyrant like Muawiyah? And how do you live the life of Hussein alayhi salam, who had to also stand before Yazid? And look at all the Imams. Each and every one of them, they had one thing. They were protecting justice. But each one of them did it in a different way. Based on what? The time and place. So, if some brothers or sisters choose to do something appropriate for a time and place, that's their choice. Each and every one of us needs to analyze, and we need to be very careful at identifying what is the right thing at the right time in the right place. And that's how we become what? Respectful to one another. And the more we are able to say, this is the right time and right place, the more we'll be successful. And the more we'll be helping and aiding Lady Zainab alayha salam. And dear brothers and sisters, in a day like today, Lady Zainab alayha salam with the caravan and Imam Zain al-Abidin, as they were taken all the way from the city of Damascus all the way to Medina. They asked the guide to go through the deserts of Karbala. At the same time, dear brothers and sisters, Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari and one of his helpers were coming to visit Imam Hussein. Jabir was an old man at the time. He did not see as his helper took him all the way to the grave of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. They say Jabir stood on the grave of Imam Hussein. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdillah. Assalamu alayka ya ibn Rasulillah. السلام عليك يا ابن خاتم الأنبياء. السلام عليك يا ابن سيد الأوصياء. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا ابن سدرة المنتهى. السلام عليك يا ابن زمزم والصفا. السلام على المرمل بالدماء. السلام على خامس أصحاب الكساء. السلام على غريب الغرباء. السلام على شهيد الشهداء. السلام على قتيل الأدعياء. السلام على ساكن كربلاء. They say when the helper told Jabir, I see a people coming from far, he goes, see and see, find who they are. They say he came running back and said, Ya Jabir, this is the son of Hussein, Imam Zain al-Abidin, coming back with Lady Zainab and the woman and the children. Now imagine, let us go with the caravan as they see the land of Karbala. Lady Zainab remembering every bit of what happened in Karbala. Imagine her as she's coming close to the land of Karbala, as she's remembering Al-Abbas alayhi salam, as she's remembering Ali al-Akbar, as she's remembering Al-Qasim. Dear brothers and sisters, let us walk with Lady Zainab step by step. I know all of you have needs tonight. Walk with Lady Zainab. Be like those who walked in the Karbala in the March of the 40th. Be like the ones who visited Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But tonight, right now, let us walk and visit Imam Hussein with Lady Zainab alayhi salam. They say Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam said, whoever visits Imam Hussein is like he visited Allah at his throne in the heavens. Lady Zainab alayha salam, she's walking step by step. Imagine her thinking now she will be seeing Imam Hussein as she was getting closer to the grave. Lady Zainab alayha salam, she came closer step by step. She's remembering the moments before Karbala. She's remembering the events of Karbala. She's remembering when he was on the grounds of Karbala. She's remembering when he was in her arms. She was calling Habibi Hussein, Nur Aini Hussein. He talked to me for the sake of our grandfather, and he would not say anything. She would remember when she insisted, Habibi Hussein, talk to me for the sake of our father Ali, and he would not say anything when she called, Akhi Hussein, talk to me for the sake of our mother Lady Fatima. She remembered when Imam Hussein told her, Ukhayya Zainab, Sister Zainab, you have broken my heart, torn it to pieces, go back to the camp, take care of the woman and the children. She remembered when she left the body, left the head, and she had to walk away from Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Habibi Hussein, Nur Aini Hussein. And now she's taken the steps back to where he is buried. They say Lady Zainab taking step by step, remembering every bit of the musibah, of the tragedy of Karbala. As she got closer to the grave, Lady Zainab sat on the grounds of Karbala. As she took her hand, as she touched the grounds where Imam Hussein was buried, as if the hand from under the earth reached out to Lady Zainab, when she said, Akhi Hussein, brother Hussein, as if the answer came from the grave, Ukhta, Sister Zainab, ya laytana kunna ma'akum sadati. غريب كربلاء، مظلوم كربلاء، شهيد كربلاء، غريب حسين، مظلوم حسين، Shaheed Hussein. Call him to Karbala. Gharib Hussein. Everyone. Mazloom Hussein. Shaheed Hussein. Gharib. Gharib Hussein. مظلوم حسين، شهيد حسين. اللهم بحق فاطمة وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها. We ask you, Allah, to accept the little we are offering in these nights, to accept them, Ya Allah, to release us from the fire of hell, to forgive us all our sins, to heal us from our illnesses, Ya Allah. Increase our intellect and our knowledge, increase our wealth بحق محمد وآل محمد. Insha'Allah, we ask him, Ya Allah, to accept us with the 12th Holy Imam alayhi salam. And we ask, Ya Allah, to make this community advance further and more with the wilayah of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Allahumma bihaqqi Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. And let us offer the blessings of recitation of Surah Al-Fatiha to all the souls of the beloved deceased ones, those who we have given the blessing of this majlis to. حق محمد وآل محمد. Let us recite to them Al-Fatiha after الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.
Hussein, 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 Hussein. Hussein, Hussein, Hussein,